Part 2. Issues of Concern. Individuals with disabilities face a variety of challenges that may not always be apparent, including dignity of life, discrimination, stigma, membership in the community, poverty and hidden costs of disability.
We had this debate about abortion, whether it was right or wrong. And it was 5 against 1. I was the only one against the abortion. I said, do you realize that every one of you in this class could be aborted? I said, because you were born like this. It got really quiet. But, you know, it's also passionate to me, not only because of the baby, but because it degrades my life as a disabled person. 90% of babies that are found to have a disability in the womb are aborted.
I value human life in whatever form it takes. So in terms of counseling, I want to encourage couples that know they're gonna have a disabled child to have the child and to rely on the support of God and the church for the ongoing raising of the child. I think it's unfortunate that in our society, abortion is practiced specifically to abort children who are thought to be born disabled.
When I read about assisted suicides, I really can't even imagine people going in for something like that, because it seems that many of the people who decide on this are really not terminal cases. Who could have ever imagined that abortion would have been legal and in vogue, and as you say, for people who do not choose to have one, that other people would look down on them and say, oh, you know, you're populating the world with people that are sick or not mentally well, and how can you do that? So it's a very topsy-turvy world when people are making laws to legalize things that seem to be, in our belief, morally wrong.
Is the patient really at that state in their life that they want to end it? We know so much about emotional and mental therapy nowadays. They may have indeed lost hope, and they may be racked with pain. But we are living in a society now where our medical science can alleviate a great deal of pain. I'm talking from experience. I hear so much about the quality of life being what determines whether a person has a right to live. I ask, what do you mean by quality of life? Joan mentioned that I knew my family around me. That was a quality of life. I knew my friends, my children. They kissed me on the cheek. They held my hand. That was a quality of life. Does that mean that I can't live because that's all I knew at that time or experienced?
Most people would ask me if I could think of a time when I was discriminated against. And I like to reverse that question and say, let me think of a time I wasn't discriminated against, or else we'll be writing a book. Because like going to a grocery store even now, and just not being checked out at the counter because the cashier isn't sure how to handle me. I mean, that's a form of discrimination, And that is a very subtle discrimination. And of course, I've endured very blatant discrimination. But I'm just giving you an example of how pervasive it is.
There's a lot of stigma, I think, surrounding the whole issue of mental illness. In my family, there was mental illness, but I never knew it. My grandfather had actually died by suicide in the 30s, and long before I was born, but nobody in the family ever talked about it. And then I had two aunts who occasionally would go on extended vacations that nobody really talked about, and basically they were going for treatment somewhere. And so there was never much of a discussion about mental illness in the family, which, if you look at it today, you know, we want to know our medical histories. So if there's cancer in the family, you want to know that. If there's some kind of a disease in the family, you want to know that. But if we never talked about mental illness, well, then we didn't know what signs to look for. One of the goals today of our advocacy work is to take mental illness out of the closet and have people be more aware of it, so that when something happens, you know where to go for help and you know who to contact.
Might be interested to note and to know, like I say, just as far as like the blind population, for example, about 70% of us are unemployed. People talk about recession and whatever we're in and whatever and all that kind of stuff. Well, we haven't known anything any different. I was living on my own in this place called the Bellcrest, and it was around Thanksgiving, and I was running short of food. Didn't have any. My refrigerator wasn't working right. I told this lady by the name of Jane Ronan, she was attending Rosary at that time, and so she told me that I needed to call Father Mack, because that was the priest at that time. And she said, you need to call him. So she gave me the number. And so I called him. And I told him who I was, and I told him I needed help. Now, the neat part about that was, which really surprised me, is that later that day, not only did he show up, but this guy by the name of Norwood Kidd, who's really an awesome person as well. They both showed up, brought me over some food, brought me over an extension cord for my refrigerator so that would work, and whatever, and all that kind of stuff. And Father Mack introduced himself, said, told me I was welcome to come to his church at any time and whatever and all that. And I'm like, that's great.
Our priority is the poor. We make that very clear in our social teaching, and I can't think of a group that needs it more. When President Kennedy was president, in his era, they deinstitutionalized the state hospitals. And so the idea, which was a wonderful idea, was that we need to put people who have mental illnesses as well as developmentally delayed intellectual disabilities into the community, and that's where they should be cared for. Well, unfortunately, the money didn't follow the good idea. So today, the largest deliverer of mental health services in the country is the LA County Jail. Second largest is Rikers Island in New York, and the third is Cook County Jail in Chicago. And in fact, in Illinois, and this is pretty true, I think, across the country, is that there are more people being treated for mental illnesses in prisons and jails than there are in all the public and private hospitals.
Right now, Danny's friends and peers, his friends are few, very few, and that's a very painful part of being a parent of a child with autism or really a lot of different disabilities. I mean, I don't like Danny to know that I pay this young man who is a companion to Danny, so I try to be very discreet about it because he doesn't want Danny to know either because they have such a nice relationship. But that's extremely expensive. And, just mostly like because he has so very little income anything that he wants to do or anything that he needs has to come from our pocket.